Hello there and welcome to a very special IGN UK podcast. Not only is it special because we're wearing Christmas jumpers and we're going to talk about our best and worst TV of 2015, but it's also the very first podcast that myself and Chris Tilley are joined by... Who are you?
My name's Dale. Hello, Internet.
Don't look at the camera. No, you can't.
It's a video podcast as well, isn't it?
So this is the first time you've been on the IGN UK podcast?
It is, yes.
So did you listen to the podcast before you...
Yes, so I was a big fan beforehand, and then I still listened while I've been here about 2 months now, and I was still listening then. So a bit surreal to be on it. It was a bit surreal to help make it at first, but even more surreal to be on it now.
Is it like when you see sausages being made and you're like, oh, bollocks, that's horrible?
What, are you saying this is horrible?
Or are you more impressed with it now?
About the same.
What do you do in our team, for people who don't know?
So I am the video producer, so I'm usually the guy who's behind the camera.
Yeah.
And editing our videos usually. So
it's quite interesting that we're doing you're in the best TV because you're actually a huge fan of possibly one of the shittest TV shows ever. Like, you're a massive fan of Lost, aren't you? You've actually got a Lost tattoo.
I have got a Lost tattoo on my arm.
I didn't know this. This is the first time hearing of this. Welcome, Dale.
As soon as I mentioned Lost beforehand, you thought that's what you're going to bring up, isn't it?
That's why we got you on the TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope you didn't show that to Alex in the job interview, because that could have been a big no.
I've also got a Street Fighter tattoo. I did show him that in my interview, though.
That's a bit cooler.
Just to prove that I was into video games more than anything.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Dale.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't mess this up.
I'll try my best.
So we want to talk about some of the best and worst things that happened in TV in 2015. But we're going to kick things off with something that Chris and I properly loved. And it's why we think The Jinx was the best drama of TV in 2015. Dale, did you watch The Jinx?
I haven't, no. So I'm going to be mostly listening at this point.
Okay. Well, hopefully... I think we can talk about it without actually spoiling stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Without actually spoiling the actual moments, I think.
Yep.
But if you don't know what it is anyway, so it's a 6-part documentary series done by HBO on the really strange real life of a real estate agent called Robert Durst, who's like this sort of like multi-billionaire family, right? Is that what they are?
Yeah.
They own a bunch of property and stuff in New York. And so a lot of strange things happened to him, like his wife disappeared.
Right.
He was charged with a strange murder and dismemberment of his neighbour, but managed to get off that.
Okay.
And there was a film made about him by a director called Andrew Jarecki, who did Capture the Freedmans.
Right, okay,
and,
I've seen that.
Yeah, so he made a film called All Good Things.
Yeah, All Good Things.
With Ryan Gosling in it. And after the film came out, Robert Durst, the guy who the film is based on, contacted the director and was like, would you like to do an interview with me? So they start doing this interview, and then from this interview, the sort of kernels of this series start. And like the first episode is kind of introduced to him, and then after that, then it's sort of bolstered by this interview that the director is having with him, and you learn more about his life and things like start to unfold. And really, really strange things.
Keep it spoiler free because it sounds really interesting. I do want to check out.
Yeah, we can't go totally spoiler free though, I don't think, because people have watched it, and we did talk about it before. But it was interesting. The film kind of just basically said that he did it. Yeah. But because they were worried about legal implications, they changed the names. They didn't really change anything else. They literally left it the same story as what they believed happened. And he saw that, and rather than sue, he got in touch and said, and so you already start understanding that there's something very strange going on in this man's psyche.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, he's just a very chilling presence, isn't he, on screen?
But also as well, like I rewatched it recently, like two weekends ago. My girlfriend who'd never seen it, and we watched that. The film came out this year called True Story with James Franco and Jonah Hill, which is another like sort of real life thing. And she really enjoyed that. And I said, "Oh, have you seen The Jinx?" She hadn't, so we watched it in a night basically. And when you rewatch it, it's interesting. Like, even though he's obviously a really, really strange man, there's something quite charismatic about him. I don't know, like there's something so compelling about just watching him. And I think for me, like when you've got a TV year with people like, you know, Frank from House of Cards, like Hannibal in Hannibal, and things like that, you sort of have these like really strange like anti-heroes who you can't, even though you know they're bastards, there's you can't help but sort of find something super interesting about them. I think it's interesting to have like a real life character like that. Like when you're watching him talking, I have absolutely no idea what's going through his head.
No, not until the end when you start getting more of a sense of what's going through his head.
Well, I think like one of the reasons that I think it is one of the like best dramas of the year is like the way that it sort of drips feeds this information, and there's a lot of sort of criticism about the way the documentary, because it's a documentary, so it's kind of like, are they making drama? Are they making TV? Are they journalists? Should they be bound by sort of journalistic integrity? Because there's a lot of sort of criticism about them holding back information and things like that. And there's also a couple of things that happen, which I didn't notice till the second series when I watched it. But in the second series, it makes it really sort of obvious that this, like, one particular character who the police were going to go to, and you get the feeling that if the police spoke to her, it would all be unraveled for him and he would be in a lot of trouble. But as the police make it known to her that they're going to speak to her, she speaks to Robert Durst, the guy, and she ends up dead. Apparently that didn't happen.
Right.
Apparently the police never made it. That conversation with her never happened.
Okay, that's problematic then.
That is problematic. Apparently that's like one of the main things that they've sort of had to go about.
It's I guess the first I heard about this show was there was a bit of pre-hype really, because it was when everyone was going crazy for the podcast called
Serial.
So everyone was going crazy for Serial. It was the biggest thing to happen to podcasting so far, and I was just reading on several sort of sites that HBO have got a TV version of this that they're gonna, because everyone was like, well, how do you translate this to TV, because this is huge numbers. And so HBO already had this in development, a very, very similar kind of thing. And again, we did a chat about Serial at the time, and I said to you how uncomfortable I was about how entertaining I was finding it. And it's the same with the Jinx. It's like I'm finding this really entertaining, like I'm watching a good thriller, and yet this is about real people who died, who were murdered, whose families are still around, who want justice. And it's something that's very unsettling. But I guess I've read books about serial killers, and we watch films about true crime and things like that. And it just seems when it's the real people talking, it really brings it home. Definitely. That I start questioning whether I should be enjoying this as much as I am.
Yeah, that is, I guess, problematic. I don't. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm not going to stop watching it, and it doesn't mean that other people don't. But it was just. I think it brings it home more when you're face to face with the person rather than Kevin Spacey playing the person.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think with this, because as you say, because it's a documentary thing, and because they use a lot of like reenactments, like dramatic reenactments that are done like really well, like shot amazingly, and it looks beautiful as well. And then it keeps cutting back then to like, this is the thing that I found really unsettling about it, is like the real CCTV footage, the real court stuff, the real phone calls as well, and real bits of.
How much of the show is real footage then, like real CCTV, real?
Quite images? A lot. I think they keep going back to like reenactments when people are talking about it and things like that.
Is it not jarring? Is it not like, do you feel like it's like, I mean, a show that we'll come talk about later, I'd imagine, is Narcos, and they do that thing every now and again where they dip into real stuff, and it always throws me off a little bit. It takes me out of the. This
doesn't feel like that. I think it's because it's used sparingly, but in a really, really good way.
Right.
But there's also a couple of times when they cut to like real bits, and you think that there's no way is that actual real, and they actually do, because they have some actual footage of them finding Morris Black, his neighbour, which he was found not guilty of murdering, but he did admit to cutting the body up. Okay. And they've actually got footage of them finding the body and things like that, and they're just like, they outline, oh yeah, this is where we found his leg, and stuff like that. But there's lots of amazing stuff that happened that I just completely forgot as well. So he's arrested for the murder of his neighbour, and the way he's arrested is a place in Texas, and the best criminal defense lawyer, there's two, and he can't decide which one to hire, so he hires them both. Like, he spends like $1.8 million or something.
Where's the money coming from?
Well, he's like part of like a billionaire like family who own like a lot of property in New York, basically. So like, money's no object to them.
Yeah, he's bought his way out of a lot of things in the past.
Okay, really?
And I mean, and obviously, I mean, what makes the whole thing come together is the moment at the end, which we won't spoil, but that was the best moment of telly I saw this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it was just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
I mean, they must have just been pinching themselves, the filmmakers, like, I cannot believe we've got this.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing that they were criticised for, is there's a very, what Chris is talking about is like this really big moment where it completely unravels.
Right.
But they sat on that for like a year. But the filmmakers claimed that they actually didn't find it till really, really close to when they actually put it out.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that may or may not be true. Equally, it's not entirely their job to solve this crime. The police Where the hell have the police been all this time? You know, they're just doing the police's job for them.
Well, that's interesting because the police have actually said, even because he's been arrested now for the murder of this friend.
Spoiler alert.
Afterwards, they run into him. But he was like found in a hotel with like guns and money in the boot of his car. Like, this guy's a really strange dude. But also, the police have said, no, there's nothing to do with the show that we arrested him. It's just like... We just have, but his brother, who's in the documentary, and didn't want anything to do with a part of it. He's actually said, I had a really good quote from him, which said, because he was still like tormenting his brother, like going to his house in Florida and stuff like that. Like, he did a lot of really, really strange stuff, and I think he was actually arrested in Florida in the end. But he said, I no longer am looking over my shoulder. I'm very grateful to the Jinx for having brought this about. His brother said, which is quite interesting. But I think like. Nothing for me came close to just that moment. There's a couple of moments, but like that, there's one moment in particular. I think that is probably one of my favorite bits of telly this year. So you should definitely watch that. It's not on Sky Atlantic anymore, but I'm not sure where you can get it. It's all on Amazon, but you have to pay for it, like $1.89 an episode.
Yeah, is it worth that? I'd imagine. Sounds like it is. Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely going to check it out over Christmas, I think.
But yeah, so what was your highlight then, Chris?
My favourite TV show of 2015 was Fargo, which was a big surprise for me, season 2 of Fargo, because I watched season 1, and while I kind of enjoyed it, I also found it a real effort. I was really forcing myself, and I only think towards the end was I actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have high expectations for this series, and it was very strange that it was going to be a prequel, 1 or 2 characters crossing over, but not really. And the big thing they seemed to say was that Bruce Campbell was playing Ronald Reagan, and it didn't make any sense to me, and I'm like, maybe this has gone off the bottom. Maybe it's my time to give up. But then, just right from the first moment of the first episode, it's just they just nailed it. It's so good. It's as good as the film at this point, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant telly. I found it like the most exciting thing I've watched since Breaking Bad. I think since the end of Breaking Bad, I think it's almost gotten that good. In I'm on the edge of my seat, and I'm finding it hard to wait a week to see what happens next week.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really worried that characters are going to die in the same way I was with Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And The Sopranos before it. And I haven't felt that with a lot of series where it's fun. Yeah. But now I just really don't want certain characters that look like they might get hurt to get hurt. And it's great writing. It looks like the best movie that's been released this year. Just visually, it's stunning. The cast is really good. Ted Danson is great in it. Patrick Wilson's really good. Kirsten Dunst, that bloke you like,
Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, gets on my nerves. I'm even
him one or twice.
I'm even enjoying him in the show.
Yeah,
not being a fan of his. So yeah, I know you're a fan as well, aren't you, Gab?
Huge fan, yeah. And I think like I really love the first series. And, like there's one thing that you just said like about characters dying. Like there's a couple of moments that have happened with particular characters where I've sort of turned to my girlfriend I was watching it with and going, he's about to die. Like, absolutely, he's going to die here. Or like,
definitely.
Or you hear a conversation and you go, that's the last conversation they will ever have together.
Yeah.
And it's like this, like builds up this horrible dread.
And yet sometimes they've completely subverted that and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but not in a disappointing way.
No.
Or where you've gone sort of like, oh, all right, so like that they sort of got away with it. It never feels cheap and it never feels like overly wrought or anything like that. It always feels like, oh, actually, the way they've done it is perfect.
But just knowing that the film ends up in kind of a bloodbath and the first series ends up in kind of a bloodbath, I am concerned with 2 or 3 episodes left. Have you seen it, Dale?
I've seen the film, but I didn't see the first season.
We're going to keep talking about programmes that Dale's not seen.
Yeah, they'll be like, who is this guy going on the podcast? He doesn't do anything. I have seen some TV shows.
Yeah.
I was interested in watching it, and it's still on my list, and I will get around to it at some point.
With the first series, it was still quite hard getting your head around exactly what it was as well. It was a very strange mixture of homage and remake and something new. And with Martin Freeman playing characters so close to William H. Macy's and things like that, it made it a strange thing to watch. Whereas this one has just totally gone out on its own. The connection to even the other series is minimal to the point that you jump straight in. Jump straight in with season 2. I would.
I think
you could actually jump in with season 2 and then if you like it, go and watch season 1 after because it would chronologically work.
Is it like similar to like The Wire? So season 2 of The Wire, there was like one character, maybe two, that were the same, and they completely changed everybody.
Honestly, it's more like True Detective in that there's no real connection in the cases or what's happening apart from the fact that one character is young in this one and he's old in the other one, and his daughter's a baby in this one, and that's all. But there's no the plot wise, it's not at all.
They take a lot of like the same kind of like themes. When you look at it, you go the first episode, you just go, this is Fargo. Do you know what I mean? It has like this sort of heist gone wrong, sort of down on his luck, like idiot characters and things like that.
Yeah.
But then like all of a sudden, like sometimes you get introduced to characters and I think, oh, this is who we're going to be following. Like for a while, because there's a character that is exactly William H. Macy's character who works in the typewriter shop. Mm-hmm. Like that's that character. And then you speak to him, you get to see him for a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
And then they sort of focus on somebody else.
It's very good for what's not said as well.
Right.
The showrunner, I did a good interview with him where he was saying that he's a screenwriter and so he likes writing dialogue, and then he's trying to get this flavour of the Coen brothers, and they're not really involved in it at all.
Oh, okay.
But he said just watching over and over again their films to try and get the rhythm right. He was taking more and more words out because they hardly use any dialogue, and the show is brilliant for that. There is so little said in that show, and everything is just shown, and it's you reading between the lines. It asks a lot of the audience, but then I think that's really rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. There's like odd like things that happen as well. Like what you're saying about this, there's been a character in both series now. There was a character in the first one that was deaf, so he talked through sign language or barely just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Actually, he might not even talk through sign language. Maybe I made that up. Maybe I think that because he's in There Will Be Blood and he talks with sign language and that. But maybe he doesn't even do that. And then now there's brothers in this series who don't talk as well. They're sort of like mute brothers, and they're just hilarious as well.
They're good characters,
But it's kind of like, do you see, like, they're sort of those, for me, in my head, those characters are connected even though they're kind of not, because they're kind of doing the same thing. And they have this like really weird well, it could be a necessary trait that they just don't talk.
Yeah.
But they're just connected in that way, and I really like how a lot of the characters feel like they are connected, or sort of like different versions, or like alternate reality versions of different things.
Yeah, sure.
I think they're doing a really smart thing.
Sure,
like that.
No, I do think that themes will repeat, and it was interesting. He said that this one, where the first series was influenced by Fargo, the movie, this one, the influence has been Miller's Crossing a lot, in that it's two gangs against each other.
Yeah.
And The Man Who Wasn't There, as well as another movie that he was saying. He's just trying to bring in lots of inspirations from their films, which I would just, if someone told me that, I would think, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But they've done it in such a way. And he's saying he doesn't even know if the Coen brothers have watched it.
Really?
They send them the scripts, and they're involved as producers or whatever, but really that's just in by name. They send them the scripts, and he said I send them the finished episodes, but he said they're busy with their film, so I don't really know what their thoughts are, and that's crazy that they're just sort of doing it in a vacuum without them.
It is strange because, as you said, like when you hear about these different things, you go, oh, so this is getting rebooted, this is getting remade, and you think, oh God, really? And when they said like Fargo's one of my favorite ever films, I just thought, why? But actually,
it didn't make any sense.
When you've got, they've obviously got an interesting idea for it, and I think when you're doing that, then that's amazing.
And that cast, the cast is so good that you wouldn't get that caliber of cast. I don't think you've not got a cast that good in the Minority Report reboot or the Limitless one. Although I guess they've got Bradley Cooper in that, but like you're these are sort of A-listers, aren't they?
Yeah. So we should go on to talk about a point then, because this is a really, really good second series.
Yes.
But we've had some absolute stinkers of second series this year.
Yeah.
I think probably the worst one that people have thought about is True Detective.
Agreed.
So it's another sort of, like True Detective, another sort of anthology type show where every series is going to be different characters, different story, different setting. And probably the first series universally loved, I would have thought. Like everybody who watched it really, really liked it. So there was a lot of sort of hype around the second series, and it just, for a lot of people, just didn't live up to it. I never actually finished it. I never got around to finishing it because I just wasn't compelled to go back and go back.
Another show I haven't seen, by the way, but I've seen bits of it. My old housemate used to watch the first season. He was always telling me to watch it. Yeah. And then when it got to the second, the few people that I spoke to who had watched it, they said it's probably not worth it, to be honest now. And they said just watch the first season and then maybe have a look again the next season and see if it's better. But just told by everybody now not to watch it. So,
well, how far did you make it through True Detective Series 2?
I watched it.
Did you?
Yeah. It was a slog, though. It was a slog. I did think it got a little bit better the last 2 or 3 episodes, but I just wasn't interested in the storyline this time around. No. I wasn't interested in the characters. I felt like that director that directed every episode of the first series and then was not involved with this one, I think that was a big loss.
Definitely, yeah.
And it was weird that they even made a frigging joke at his expense in the show.
Strange.
I thought Vince Vaughn was really badly miscast. And I found it very confusing as well. I found it like a quite hard show to keep up with, and maybe that's my stupidity, but but partly because I wasn't interested. Like it really made I'm having to go away and really think about this. I can't be bothered. I don't care about any of these characters.
I think the first series was definitely like that. The first series was really confusing, and but because you bought into it, you made a very conscious effort of being like, okay, right, what is going on here, and you actually thought about it a little bit more,
or Google it. Whereas this time around, it was such a shame because. The first series was such an interesting, brilliantly put together thing. I still don't really like the last episode of the first series, but it was worth the journey to get there, and just the best thing that those two actors have done as well. And then this one, I'm a Vince Vaughn fan, but and I hope this is going to do for him what, the first series did for at that time for McConaughey, but just wasn't. It just didn't have the chops to do it.
It didn't have for me the main sort of relationship either between good characters McConaughey and Harrelson, having those two very, very different types of characters approaching this case from really, really different sort of ways. But in this, I don't know who I was meant to be on the side of, or whose story I was meant to be buying into. Because I quite enjoyed Taylor Kitsch's thing. He was doing something a little bit different. He kind of enjoyed that.
He was the character I enjoyed the most. Rachel McAdams was interesting. I didn't mind that because that did at least make it a bit different, but it just didn't. It didn't work.
No.
Shame.
No, but there's been a couple of other not very good second series. Orange is the New Black was a lot of people let down by that.
Yeah, that's funny. I actually stopped watching that one.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I wasn't even disliking it that much. I just lost interest. You've got to
nothing happens in the season. Nothing happened at all. My girlfriend was watching it and I'm sitting there and I'm like, there was an episode where they were about, she was writing a fiction book or something, whatever, and it was just about an alien, and then that was the story. That was the whole episode.
Right.
It was just about her wanting to write a book in a story writing club or something like that. It's this is not the television that I want to watch.
Yeah, which is a shame because that looked like it really could have had legs, but now it feels like it's kind of one and done, that one.
Yeah. Another one as well is Catastrophe, and this is an interesting one because I haven't been enjoying the second series of Catastrophe at all, and I absolutely loved the first one. But lots of people seem to have they sort of kind of mixed reviews about the second series. But it's really strange how that one went into production they've been 2 series in 1 year basically. Yeah. That's really strange.
It is and it isn't though, because they're only 6 episodes. So if you go by the American model, it's still only half what they do in a year. But with it just being the 2 of them writing it, it's quite impressive to get that done. I can't speak for this one because I only got halfway through the first series and I was really enjoying it, but I wanted to finish that before I got onto the second one.
Yeah.
But you're the first person I've heard that said they didn't like it.
Oh really? Okay.
Is that been a quite general?
I think it's sort of mixed. I think the people who really, really love the first one are kind of enjoying it, but it's just not as good, basically.
Has it screened in America, Catastrophe, yet?
The first series has,
okay,
and it's sort of available there. I'm not sure about the second series.
Yeah, sure.
But for me, probably the worst series I watched, the worst thing I watched on telly this year, and I think just an awful, awful second series was Broadchurch. Now, I love the first series of Broadchurch. Right. It was, I thought it was so good, and I thought it was going to be a self-contained thing, and then they did a second series, and it was just everything that was good about the first series just sort of hauled out and just beaten to death. It was every week it was getting worse and worse and worse, and it's just a horrible payoff. And I think they're bringing it back for a third as well now. I don't think anybody wants this.
Let's reinvestigate that case again. I totally agree. It was bizarre. It was like fan fiction or something. It wasn't like a real program. And the first series had worked so well. Definitely should have left it.
Yeah.
I mean, everything they did just made the first series seem worse. Talk about ruin your legacy. It was just so unnecessary, everything in it.
I like the idea of going back. If they were going to do a second series, going back and just having him doing those murders that before, what were they called? Sandbrook. Like going back and like sort of investigating that, I would kind of like to see that.
Sure, well, they were compelling characters, compelling protagonists,
and a really good story. The Sandbrook thing, was.
Sure,
yeah.
Or give them another case, but to just go back over the previous case when we've been there, we've done that. And then you just kept thinking, well, it's going to have some kind of amazing payoff here.
Yeah.
They can't just be reinvestigating this for no reason.
No.
Oh, no, they are. Yeah, they are. There's no, that's the payoff. Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's laughable. You've taken this beautiful, tragic tale and you've made it into like almost like a comedy at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was when they all, were sending him off in a taxi.
Yeah. And it was like kind of like based around like a courtroom, almost trying to make it like a courtroom drama. But it was just laughable because they kept running back from, the Sandbrook thing. They kept running, and then they would run. We need to get to court for this time. So then you like so much of it happened in like foyer, like the foyer of a courtroom. They were just like either running in or running out, and like it was just so hard to watch every week. It's just like, what are they gonna do this week that is gonna try and wreck the memory of the first series for me?
Yeah, and they nailed it. That's what they were trying to do. All right, that's 4 negatives. I need you to now give me 5 positives to make me feel better.
5 positive second series.
Just something TV. Let's go back to the good stuff.
All right, Dale, what was your highlight then?
My highlight of the year was Mr. Robot.
Okay, so this is on my guilty. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, like all the shows we spoke about so far for me.
But it's one of the ones that we even had an email on the IGN UK podcast the other day saying, how come you guys never talk about Mr. Robot? It's like,
because it hadn't screened in the UK though.
It wasn't easy to find. I only heard about it through American websites, really.
Where did it screen in the UK then? Because I know it was
on telly.
It's on Amazon now, isn't it?
Amazon, okay.
Wasn't it initially on Channel 4?
I don't think so.
That's not how I saw it. No.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't discuss how I saw it,
no,
but
But it's all on Amazon Prime now, yeah.
Yes. So fantastic show, very of the times as well, with all the stuff going on with Anonymous and hacktivism in general. Really, that's what it's all about. I found it as someone I've studied film in the past as well, and the cinematography of the show is really striking and at first kind of jarring and off-putting, but then. It's a really wanky way to say it, but it kind of lends itself to the plot as well. It's like everything breaks all the rules of cinematography. Like the classic one is the rule of thirds. Like most people know what the rule of thirds is, and it just completely throws out the window. You'll have the frame there, and he'll be right in the bottom corner, and this huge amount of space is wasted. But it for some reason it feels right in this show, and I can't quite explain it.
There's no actual robots, isn't it? I'm right.
No. No, there's no robots.
No, and
I can tell you what Mr. Robot wants, but I think it might be a spoiler.
Right. I actually do think the title is a problem actually,
right, okay.
Because you immediately think, oh well, that sounds like a silly sci-fi show.
Yeah.
It makes me think of something called Metal Mickey, which was a kids show on in the 80s, which you guys are too young for.
Yeah.
But and so you almost have to, when you tell someone about it, you almost have to qualify it. I've done that twice now, but there's no robots in it. Not that robots are bad, but like it's a very grounded, although it's set in the future, it's very grounded in very real things.
Do you not find the synopsis as well is really boring? Like when I'd seen all these reviews and thought, I want to watch this. Then I read the synopsis and I thought, it doesn't sound that interesting, but I'm willing to give it a go. But it felt like a hurdle to get over. And trying to convince my girlfriend to watch that first time around was a challenge, and I'm glad I did because she really enjoyed it.
I think the reason maybe I thought it was on Channel 4 is because there was a Channel 4 show called Humans, which is about robots.
Yeah,
it's much better than
Humans. So I thought
it's much better.
Maybe I'm confusing.
It's much better than Humans.
Okay, good.
And the lead actor's really interesting guy who I've seen in a few things but never really noticed. Although I have spoken to some people who have a problem with his performance and the camera work and stuff, just saying that by the end, like what's interesting at the beginning becomes quite annoying towards the end. And I can see that, but I was with it. It just... I found that the last episode was a bit of a damp squib. Yeah. When it kind of it built to a bit of, I don't know, it was sort of you were expecting a crescendo and it just kind of.
I felt like that was I think it was a while ago I watched it, but I think it was episode 8 or 9. It felt like the point we've been building to all season was that point. Yeah. And then it was kind of like a Game of Thrones model where the last episode is kind of the fallout and it was just the dust was settling. And I see what you're saying there. It's a bit disappointing. The biggest thing for me that irks me about that show is, well, there's 2 things actually. The first one is it's all doom and gloom. Like there's no light moments whatsoever. And even in some of the darker shows, I'll have moments where there's a bit of fun or something, and it's a very serious, depressing watch. Yeah. And the other one I've completely blanked on right now.
I really want to see Mr. Robot because the main guy in it is in Until Dawn, which is one of my favourite games of the year as well. So I kind of want to see it to see what he's like in that. But I think I was put off by a lot of like the posters and stuff as well. Like the posters were like really bad for it. They had stuff like it was just like year 9 sort of like hacktivism type things, like basically said hack the planet on it and stuff like that.
I thought of my other one.
Kind of put me off.
It's come back to me. It was the plot twist. Did you not think it was? Chris,
yeah,
did you
it was
think
strange. It was.
Yeah, but I felt like it was something that's been done a lot as well, and you could kind of see it coming from the start. I picked up on it in the first couple of episodes.
Agreed.
And then they ignored you. You kind of forgot about it for a while, and then it came back, and it's like, kind of saw that coming, but it never
now
really.
When I'm watching, that's all I'm going to be looking for. It's like, Dale got over the first.
But it's obvious on what kind of character is and how he talks. That there's always something more going on with him. So, but it's still like there are 2 minor things which are. Don't ruin a fantastic show.
Okay.
And what's your favourite show of the year, Bing Gav?
Like Fargo's up there. I think Mad Men.
Yeah.
Because I think it is my favourite. I thought about it a lot. I think Mad Men is my favourite TV show. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the only times where I felt like I was watching something that was my favourite thing on telly, and it was ending. And I was super sad that it was ending, but it ended in like a perfect way for me. I think there was nothing that came out of that show where the last episode where I thought, what would I have liked to have seen different? Even there's a couple that like the sort of the way there was one. I'll try not to spoil it again, but like the way they end one set of characters, sort of this sort of relationship, they end it in a really sort of over the top, sort of like Hollywood way. But actually, I was like, I needed something really, really nice, and I needed a really good payoff for that because. I don't know. I kind of excused it, even though I was just like, okay, this is really over the top. I don't know. It was just like it was so nice to see something really good happen to 2 characters that I loved.
Yeah,
I really liked that, and I just think what they actually did with him in those last few episodes, I had absolutely no idea where it was going. And there's a couple of because a lot of the last episode is just conversations over the phone, which is kind of really strange, but it really works because like he has these like. Really important, like 3 important conversations on the phone, which kind of ties back to something like as I said earlier in the series about like the 3 most important people in your life and things like that. And he has these 3 conversations, and they're just brilliant conversations. And just the last shot, I think, like if I think back to like my other favorite TV shows like Sopranos, I still don't know how I feel about the end of Sopranos. Like I don't know if I liked it, if I didn't, what I think actually happened. And I've thought about that a lot. Whereas this. It was clean without being too clean, I think. And
I wonder if because it was a relatively happy ending.
Yeah.
No shocks, no twists, nothing particularly dark happening. I guess you could say the Don thing is it's kind of dark, but fitting in keeping with him as a character. Yeah. But will it be as remembered as well that ending as something like Sopranos, or I guess there was some finality to Breaking Bad and. Some characters in The Wire at the end there. I wonder if it was almost too sweet and nice, and it's almost because it was what everyone wanted. Yeah. Will it stay with people like some of these other shows have, or do you need to subvert that a bit more than they did?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe, but I kind of felt like that with Breaking Bad.
That was kind of
because a lot of people think that is brilliant, but I thought that was a little bit too clean.
Yeah.
But at the time when I was watching Mad Men, I didn't think that. But you are right; it ties things up so. But then there was also, I mean, I spoke to a couple of people on. I think there's only one way of reading the end of it, but a lot of people did read it a completely different way as well.
People are always going to do that though. They do it with Breaking Bad as well.
Yeah.
It's blatantly obvious what happens at the end, but someone still manages to say, "There's another season coming. He's still alive."
Yeah.
Spoilers. Sorry.
But there was no like for me there was no 2 ways of reading this. I don't know.
No, definitely not. And it was a really good season as well. Like it was a really strong. I think the consistency on that show has been really impressive in terms of the writing and the acting and it was the end of something really special. I think that'll probably always be in my top 5. It's not my favourite, but it'll always be up there. It was just a brilliant thing that it's one of those shows that if someone had told me the premise, I don't think I would have been very interested in it, but it's just that's what good writing is and good television is.
I still have that. I still have a conversation, I reckon, at least once a month with someone who hasn't seen Mad Men, of just in the pub or something, and me just going, please, you should definitely watch it.
Well, it is one of those shows that didn't seem to get everyone on board.
Yeah,
I think in the way that Breaking Bad did, The Wire eventually did, Sopranos did, and not everyone watched it.
No, strange, it's really strange.
Do it.
But and also another one of my tops as well was VEEP. As like comedy series go, this has just got so much better over the years. Like it's always been really, really good, but it's just got better and better and better. And like, it's not. I guess you can't. It's not a remake or reimagining of The Thick of It, but they do. It's interesting in the later series. They have. It's really, really similar to the final series of The Thick of It. There's even one of my favorite episodes of The Thick of It is the deposition episode where everything's been sort of leading up, and they film. A lot of stuff has gone bad in The Thick of It, and they have to actually answer for all this horrible stuff that they've done with this sort of public hearing. And this happens in VEEP, this series, and it's one of my favorite series. It's one of my favorite episodes of anything that I've watched this year because it's interesting to see what these people act in. You've spent all this time with these characters, so you know kind of what they're thinking when they're saying all this like public stuff. But it's interesting to basically have an entire episode of just having them doing their public stuff, and it's just so funny.
It's very funny.
Yeah, it's just so many amazing, hilarious characters in it. So if you haven't been watching the VEEP, you should definitely watch.
Yeah, best comedy on telly now, and it really wasn't like that. You're right; it's improved with every season, and it's nearly as good as The Thick of It now. The only thing it's missing really is a character as good as what's his chops, Peter.
Malcolm,
But aside from that, it's I can't wait for the next series. And unfortunately, Iannucci's left, I think, hasn't he, with this series?
Has he?
Yeah, I think this was his last season, just because he wanted to move on and do other things. But I hope they can keep up the standard without him, because...
Yeah, I hope so.
And it won the Emmy, I think, this year, didn't it, for best?
It did, yeah.
Like, I think this year, Fargo and VEEP were the two winners, and I was like, brilliant. Although it was series 1 of Fargo, I was like, this they picked the right two.
Yeah. I didn't know that Iannucci had left. Like this, because there's a lot of like other British people involved in it. The brothers who involved with like Partridge now, like those guys, like really heavily, like they do a lot of like script stuff on it. And Chris Addison like directed quite a lot of
directs a lot of it.
So hopefully it keeps up.
Yeah.
What was one of your other highlights of the years?
Well, let me see. I was going to talk about Hannibal.
Okay.
Hannibal's a show it's taken me a while to really fall in love with, but I thought it was... Cooper likes it a lot more than I do, but it was a show we'd always come in and talk about after each episode, which is always a good sign.
Yeah.
And they really went for it in that final season. I think maybe they found out halfway through that they were getting cancelled, and so they were tying everything up. And it's still shocking to me how violent that programme was. Really? To see that on... And I think it's on network television as well. Yeah. It's like... I mean, really the stuff of nightmares. As unpleasant as any horror film I saw this year. And I think Mr. Robot had horror elements to it as well. I think there's been some quite chilling...
Different kind of horror.
Some chilling TV this year. But yeah, I thought Hannibal... I thought it's a shame they won't be anymore, but I thought the ending was a really perfect ending for what that programme represented.
Oh, that's interesting, because that's kind of like why I've stayed away from it. Because I watched the first couple of episodes when it was first on, when it first started. And I kind of thought, it's something maybe I'll get into when it's all been released.
I'm exactly the same.
But then I kind of sort of stayed away from it because I knew because it was getting cancelled. But you don't think that's a thing?
No, I think they knew far enough in advance that they were able. But equally, it's an ending where if it's always been said that they will do more if they can. It's just no one has wanted to buy. It just costs too much money. But you could easily carry on. But if it ends there, then I'm happy with it.
Okay, cool.
So you have to watch it now to find out what that ending is.
What was it? Its third season?
Yeah, 3 series.
So, I was like Gav. I watched first couple, and I was like, it's okay, but I had other things I wanted to watch. And it kind of just got pushed aside. And then when you hear it's getting cancelled, like, is it worth my time anymore? But it sounds like it is.
Yeah, I just kind of didn't like Will. I didn't like his dream sequences and things like that.
And I'm not a big fan of the actor who plays him.
Yeah.
And I can't understand what Hannibal's saying sometimes still. Does that make me racist? But I just because I like my horror, and I haven't been a huge amount of horror films I've liked recently. It was good to see something on the telly that was nastier than what was in cinemas.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about Netflix a bit though, weren't we?
Yes,
as well.
Let's do that.
Favorite Netflix show, Dale?
So Gav's got one. So he might want to go first, which
All right,
I
Gav,
shared.
what's your favourite Netflix show of this year?
It was Narcos. It's such a... I kind of know quite a lot about the story of...
Pablo Escobar.
That's
a good start.
I love him. I'm obsessed with...
What's his name?
Except his name. And so I was interested to see how they sort of went about doing this.
Same.
But it's such a good show, like perfectly casted Escobar. I think like he's really, really good.
Absolutely, he's a standout of the show.
But also the police, like the main police guys. I really enjoy them as well.
So the guy who's in Game of Thrones, I can't remember his name, Pedro
Pascal.
Pascal, yeah, he's really good. I really enjoyed him. The other guy who plays, is it DA Agent Murphy? I think. Yeah. And I just felt like all the way through the show, I was never rooting for him. I never really cared about what he was doing. And obviously, as the show develops, he is becoming more like, he's bending the law to get what he wants, which is Pablo down. Really.
It's basically about like sort of mix between these two governments, like American and South American, trying to take down Pablo Escobar, the sort of like drug cartel. And it's really sort of dense. It's really unforgiving. Like it's half of it's English, half of it's in Spanish. So you have to read like a lot of.
More like 70% of it. Yeah, it's a lot of subtitles.
So it's kind of like unforgiving. You really have to like completely focus on it. It's not something you can sort of watch in the background or anything like that. But I kind of like that. So it reminds me of The Wire in that way, where if you are not paying attention for a scene, then you'll be lost.
You can't be a passive fan of Narcos.
Definitely not. No. But I really like the sort of mix of like real life. They use a lot of like real life sort of footage and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of photos. No, it just every time it takes me out. I'm aware then I'm watching a TV show again. And it's like, that's the real version. And I was like, I just want to be invested in the show. It's not enough to really put me off the show. I love the show. It's just something that jarred me every time.
But for me, because they use like a lot of like old like sort of archive footage and things like that, that just makes me like click that this is real. This is all stuff is real, really happened. Definitely. He actually did a lot, and a lot of the stuff that he's doing as well. It makes it even better because it is real. Because you think if it was in a show that was just like completely straight up, just fictionalized, like just fiction drama, you think, well, that's not believable at all. But because it's real, you just think, God, how's this guy getting away with all this different stuff?
Are they definitely doing a second series?
They are. Yeah.
I don't know, like, where's left to go, really? Like, because I know the real events of Pablo Escobar, and I suppose that's spoiler territory going into there. But
I guess so.
It felt really well paced, though. That's one thing I will say about the show. It's like how this is a man's real life, and obviously he's had a crazy life, and all the things that he did were insane. But they managed, every episode felt like it felt self-contained to a degree as well. The first episode maybe not, was the one where it was sort of backstory, filling it all in so it could get you up to speed. But fantastic show. A really nerdy comment, but I really love the colours of the show as well.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's one of the only shows I think on Netflix that I don't feel like it was filmed in a warehouse. I always think that. Like, I love the first series of House of Cards, but I think that was filmed in a warehouse, in like a big warehouse where they had everything there. Yeah. And it all feels like that. It feels like everything takes place in a room, whereas this actually feels like it's actually outside.
Definitely,
Like even in like Daredevil and Jessica Jones, like that, it feels like everything you're watching is on a big set.
Did you watch season 3 of House of Cards?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. That's been one of my favourite Netflix shows this year. A lot of interaction between Frank and the Russian president, and it's very interesting. You can sense that they've probably drawn from Putin and things that happen in real life. He's a real son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And it's great just seeing him and Frank kind of going toe to toe. And I mean, it's a series I find hard to watch.
Yeah.
Because I find it relentlessly disturbing, upsetting me on a level that I don't really like. I'm not very comfortable with. I'm a bit of a wimp, and it just like.
It's nasty.
And the funny thing is, I watched the original. There was a British version of House of Cards on when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember it being one of the most frightening things I'd seen, because I was too young when I watched it. I was probably 10.
Yeah.
When it was first on the telly, and he's very similar. The character's very similar. He's Francis Urquhart in the original, because he's posh. And I just remember how not being able to understand how someone so charming could be so evil. It was my first exposure to a character like that, and my 10-year-old brain couldn't really deal with it. And now my 37-year-old brain struggles to deal with Frank. Do I like him or don't I like him?
That's the thing. It's really hard, because the stuff he does is just nasty, and
her, she's really pretty. but she's evil.
Yeah.
What scares you more, Chris? The original House of Cards or the Superman 3 robot scene?
Oh, Superman 3 robot scene. No doubt whatsoever. Watch that on the superhero show.
I think one of the worst things about it as well is just the way that it feels, like I've only watched 2 series, but even by sort of midway through series 2, I kind of could see, he's manipulating you for this reason, sort of thing. Whereas in the first series, a lot of it is thinking, even though you know he's a bad dude, you're thinking, is he doing this for the greater good? Is he just doing it for himself? And then you go by series 2, you're like, no, he's just bastard. Like,
I knew that because I'd seen the original, and I knew that if they were going to stick to who the character is, he's just pure evil.
Yeah.
But so hopefully the fun's going to come now in starting to see his downfall, because they'll have to start doing that. That's a show where I definitely don't want to see the hero win, because it should be fun watching him, and there's elements of that in this season. But
that's the thing. It is going to be fun watching it, because it's going to make you feel better about yourself, isn't it? Because you've been along for this ride, and as you said, like you've gone, do I like this guy? And if I do, what does that say about me? So actually having him fall and be like, okay, good, that's good, because that's what we don't get anymore. You get like people who you kind of like Breaking Bad. You're kind of on his side because it all starts from a place of good, whereas this all is from just evil.
Pure evil.
Yeah.
We'll get onto the other Netflix ones in the next section.
Okay.
I feel like if we're talking about Netflix, is there any Amazon shows that you liked that came about this year?
I haven't watched Man in the High Castle yet.
No. It's been pretty mixed though. I feel like people have been quite mixed on that.
Apparently, it's got a really, really good ending.
Okay.
But I watched all of Red Oaks.
Yeah.
The David Gordon Green series. And I really liked the sort of, it was pilot. It was one of those pilots that Amazon did where they did a bunch of pilots.
Yeah.
And then you could vote on which ones they would make into like full shows. And it was one of the ones they made into a full show. And it's kind of good, but at the end when I finished it, kind of sort of looked at my girlfriend and we're just like, yeah, like, it's just utterly pointless.
Yeah, it's a nice easy watch though.
Yeah. It's
quite relaxing. It's not that laugh out loud funny.
No.
It's nice to see friend of the show Craig Roberts in it, and some of the periphery characters are funny. But no, I'm watching it as much for the nostalgia of the 80s, which is my thing.
Yeah.
As I am for that you're desperate to watch episode after episode. Any Amazon ones that spring to mind?
Not. I don't have an Amazon Prime account, so I haven't seen any of them. No. Is it worth getting? Do you feel like there's enough TV shows on there to?
I've watched a lot of documentaries on there. I think they're getting there. I think their TV is getting better and better as they go along. And I think this way of letting the audience choose is a really interesting business model.
But would you suggest someone has Netflix and Amazon Prime Video?
Why not? I've got them.
So
that's your job, though.
Don't think
you've got one on top of your deal list from Netflix. And if I was going to make a list of my worst TV shows of the year, Master of None would be on it.
I thought you
mentioned this to me earlier.
I thought, did you not even like the first episode or something?
I really like.
I only watched the first episode, so I don't know.
Did you like it? It was a stinker.
I didn't finish it. It's too hard for me to watch Netflix with my internet connection at the moment. So,
okay.
So I can't.
That's not Aziz Ansari's fault.
Not entirely. No. It's not.
That's the biggest hook for me. I'm a massive Aziz Ansari fan.
So am I.
Yeah.
Like I love him. I read his book earlier in the year, and I thought it was really, really good. Yeah. Like I love his stand-up. Been to see him live a couple of times.
Oh wow, okay.
I really like him on Parks and Rec. He's one of my favourite characters.
But does he not feel like an extension of that character from Parks and Rec?
No.
Mixed with kind of what he is in real life,
It's too smug. It's like I thought it was a really horrible smug show.
And it's definitely not one of my favourite shows of the year, but it's something I found very easy to watch, and the time sort of flew by, and it felt like there were scenes in there, and I was like, what's really happening in this scene? I could never quite follow the narrative, so to speak. It was just a bit bizarre, but I found that intriguing as well, and it was something that it's resonated with me, it stuck with me. So
because he's such a smart person, and like his book is brilliant. Like you should definitely read his book. It's about it's called Modern Romance, and it's about sort of like dating sort of now. I thought it was going to kind of be like that, and it kind of does draw upon some bits and bobs. But another show which I haven't put on my list, but I completely forgot about, was Louis as well.
Right,
like that always just gets better and better all the time.
But it does feel a lot like Louis actually to me.
But at the same time, the thing I like about Louis is, it's a comedian writing about this like weird world that I don't know anything about, but he writes in a way I was just like, that's exactly how people talk.
Yeah.
Like he writes like perfect dialogue with that. Whereas Master of None, nobody talks like that.
I agree.
And it's meant to be this sort of like realistic like comedy show. I'm just like, none of the things that are said, I don't really, I'm not on any character's side. People love the show, though.
I didn't like his parents in it at all.
And everyone went mad for them, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a big thing. Like, I think his dad was on Colbert, I think.
That's crazy, because they were, like, they completely took me out of it. At that point, they were just... They might as well have held like cue cards behind the camera or something, because they were just bad, they were terrible actors.
That's making me want to watch it. Suddenly.
It's only second. I think it's the second episode they bring his parents in. Okay, so you don't have to watch much else if you.
But I felt like there was times where it was good fun, and he's just such a lovable guy as well. I always found myself like,
that is
something about him that always entertains me.
I think the comedy on Netflix has been pretty good though, generally. Kimmy Schmidt was an interesting show. You know, I had mixed feelings about it, but like, it was quite a brave show. Quite an unusual show.
So unusual.
Quite edgy.
It's such a strange show, that is. Like, I really, really liked it, and I finished
very
that.
Watchable, yeah.
Definitely.
Very
and
watchable.
I think like some of the jokes in that like really made me laugh, like for days and days and days afterwards. But then the actual episodes themselves, the containing it, was sometimes a little bit poor. I thought, actually, you haven't come up with a very good way of containing these jokes, but I still really enjoyed it. And what's her name, who plays Kimmy, is just really, really funny as well. She was one of my favourite things in the American Office, like later on. She was really, really good.
No, it was good. And Wet Hot American Summer you've got on your list as well, which Netflix brought back.
Which I didn't know anything about. I'd never seen the original film, and then I just saw it popping up on Netflix. I saw the cast and it seemed bizarre, so I thought I'd give it a shot. So I watched the film first and then watched the show. And I just...
thought you were going to say you watched this show without watching the film. No. Like...
So I saw it was coming, so I thought I'll watch the film first. And I just really enjoyed it, because it's just... like a lot of these TV shows what we get are all serious and quite, hard-hitting stuff. And that's just a bit of fun, a bit stupid. It's a parody of itself. The fact that it's a prequel and they're playing their younger versions of their younger selves, it's ridiculous, and it was just good fun, I thought.
Yeah, that's something I enjoyed more than the film, actually. I mean, I watched the film at the time when it came out, and I found it a little bit annoying. But I think the jokes have got better, and I really like Gay Bradley Cooper as well. I like Bradley.
He was only on it for one day, wasn't he?
Cooper. Yeah,
he was only on set for one day, and then they do a joke with it later where they put a mask on him. He's like DJ Ski Mask, just so they could use somebody else as like a stand-in for him.
Nice.
That was really clever.
But I also feel like it's been the year of the superhero show, really, because we've had so many. Some new ones, some old returning ones, some that came and got cancelled before they even finished. So I'm going to list them all now. Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Agent Carter, Gotham, Constantine. There might be more. But what did you watch any of them? Did any of them that you liked, anything you hated?
See, I watched the first episode because I kind of wanted to, because Alex watches Flash and Arrow. And every time he talks about it on the podcast, I would just go, they're not for me. And Gotham as well. So I thought, I'm going to watch the first episode. So I've watched the first episode of all of these. And a lot of people will say, you can't judge a show by its first episode. Yeah, you can. I think you should. Like, this should be their best episode.
I agree.
That and the last episode should be their best episode. And I think just Flash, Arrow, Supergirl less so, because I really enjoyed the first episode of Supergirl. But none of them like grabbed me at all. Like, I'm like, even like Jessica Jones and Daredevil. Like, I haven't finished Daredevil or Jessica Jones because I just didn't feel compelled to. And apparently, like, Flash and Arrow get really, really good in the second series, but I'm not going to watch an entire show, an entire series, because something gets better later on.
My problem with them is I think they're both... I like both of them, but there's too many episodes in a season, and there's so many that I've got to watch now. I haven't... If you haven't kept up from the beginning, to go back and watch, 40 episodes of Arrow to get to the good stuff or whatever... and I think there's just too much filler in those. I think Daredevil and Jessica Jones have been stronger in that there have only been 13 episodes. But even then, Dan and I did our spoiler cast for Jessica Jones, and that was the criticism. It felt like a really, really good 8-episode series arc that was stretched out. And so I think the length of some of these seasons is a problem. I mean, I watched the first episode of Gotham and just felt like it wasn't really for me. Constantine I stuck with till about halfway through. It was quite hard to find and watch. That was Amazon, wasn't it? It was okay, but like it's still not become appointment television for me in the way that everything else that we've talked about is. I'm still waiting for that 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10
definitely
superhero show. I don't know if that'll happen next year with Preacher. He's not full on superhero, but I've got high hopes for that.
Yeah.
I can see that Supergirl might be a really great show for young girls. I think that's the one that maybe will. I'm really pleased to see around. But
yeah.
Oh, and what's that on Legends of Tomorrow? I'm quite up for. I might give that a go because I really like time travel as well.
Okay. Yeah, like for me, the thing that I kind of. This is the thing. The thing that I kind of missed from Daredevil and Jessica Jones is the thing that probably then in Flash and Arrow they have like standalone episodes and things like that. And I kind of wish that Daredevil and Jessica Jones did have that. Whereas them dealing with different cases and things like that, because some of the sort of just really really short runs of storylines in Daredevil. Like I've read Daredevil's probably my favorite comic book, and some of the like short runs of cases that he takes, like a lot of stuff in Daredevil, like you don't even see him put the costume on. He's just dealing with these different cases and things. And I thought maybe we would have got to see more of that in the first in the series of that, but we just didn't at all. It was all about this one particular thing, and it's basically like a long film, which is hard to do, like really really hard to do. Like the only TV show I can remember doing it really well, where they do like. One episode finishes and the next episode picks up was Eastbound and Down. Like Eastbound and Down did that.
I love that
was like,
show.
I think possibly like 6 to 8 episodes, something like that. But it was basically like a long film.
Yeah.
But for me, that really worked because it's a little bit different because they're shorter and it's like comedy. But it really worked because it kind of like held you. Whereas I think Daredevil and Jessica Jones never did.
Yeah.
It's just like stretching out. A really, really serious storyline, in a really, really short periods of time.
Jessica Jones definitely felt more like that than Daredevil for me.
Yeah.
I've just finished it last night, and everything down to the pacing, down to the final episode, and I think the 10th episode is the big one for me. But it all felt like a film structure. Like there was no procedure, nothing procedural about it in the slightest.
I think they have been the two best though, the Netflix ones, and what they have done, which the Marvel movies haven't done, is get the villains right.
Yes,
like two very compelling, interesting villains. Where the movies only maybe Loki. Like they've dropped the ball a lot with their villains so far. So that was really good to see.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's a darkness there. There's it was tackling some really serious issues. The jury's not in yet, but it's cool that Netflix are doing this experiment. I think
definitely
it's going to be really interesting to see how it. And Daredevil was so popular, they've rushed that second series, and I think, good on them for giving it a go.
Do you think we're a little bit like you just said? Like I think you made a really good point. Like we're waiting for like the first 9, 10 out of 10. Series. I think we're maybe are we a little bit sort of forgiving of superhero stuff because you go, oh well, it is a superhero show,
I don't know if I've talked to a lot of people who do think they're 9, 10 out of 10
really?
Those two shows, and on the site we certainly did. Our reviews of both shows were very positive. I've read around people thinking that Jessica Jones is the best thing that's Marvel's done because of the issues it tackles and the places it goes, and having a strong female protagonist is we've all been waiting for that, and they've done it on the TV rather than in the movie. So
I just think the quality's not there for something like we've talked about Fargo, which is your favorite, like one of my favorites of the year. Like for me, putting Jessica Jones and Daredevil next to Fargo, it seems like they're made in two different worlds. Like obviously they're made in different worlds.
Yeah.
But, do you know what I mean? They seem like the quality of production and like writing and directing. It's so the gap is massive.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because it's superhero stuff, or?
Well, would a superhero film win an Oscar?
Yeah, I think Dark Knight came close.
Yeah.
There's no reason why a superhero show couldn't be as good as the ones we're talking about. Fargo just happens to be a real classic in the making.
Then if you think like House of Cards, like they got David Fincher on board for the first series of that to really get off to like. Why can't a superhero show do that? Like it's got a good Daredevil for me felt like it had like a better showrunner involved in the first series of that. Like I didn't really know anything about the production of Jessica Jones, like who was sort of spearheading that or anything like that.
Oh, I forget what her name is, but she's brilliant. I can't remember the TV show she did, but she's she's brilliant, and she's been developing that for 10 years. Jessica Jones. It was going to be on ABC, and it was Carol Danvers and Jessica Jones is who it was going to be about, but that all changed. No, I'm not as down on them. I just think it's a cool time to be a superhero fan, really.
Definitely.
We've got 6 movies next year, as well as all these TV shows coming back. So.
Jesus. Right. Any special mentions then for your other favourite TV shows of the year?
I think Better Call Saul was something that I expected us to have spoke about.
Oh, that was a Netflix one, actually, yeah. We didn't talk about it.
It was AMC in the States.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I didn't put it on the Netflix.
It was obviously a fantastic show. It felt just like the obvious one to say there, didn't it? I suppose, especially on IGN.
I really liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It was a fantastic show.
I liked it more than I was expecting to.
Definitely,
yeah. It's not what I was expecting it to be, because I remember when they were first talking about it, it was implied that it was more going to be a case of the week, more comedy centric, and it definitely wasn't that. It was like a long form film again. There's a continuous story.
We had a couple of tweets. Well, we had a tweet about from Gary Rawlins, who said Better Call Saul. He said it's a great example of a perfect prequel to Breaking Bad while being its own show itself, unexpectedly tense and dramatic. Daniel Nightingale, who talks about something that we didn't speak about, who said Wayward Pines was his standout of the year. Outstanding show from a very surprising source.
That's one I gave up on after 3 or 4 episodes because I really didn't like it.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah. QTX Gaming says the whole final season of Justified, and anyone who says different is quite clearly wrong.
I haven't got there yet. I haven't got there.
I'm not even close to that. I really like Justified, though.
Good show.
Calvin Costa says Gotham has been a surprise this season. One of my favourite shows now.
I have heard it got better. Yeah, I have heard it got better. But once you got burnt, you're like,
exactly.
Can I be bothered?
One episode, and that was enough.
Yeah. Nick Snow says one of his highlights of the year was the raid-style fight scene near the start of the season in Daredevil. Yeah. Which brilliant. That was really, really good. Luke Gosling says, with so many returning shows not quite delivering, which is something we talked about, the superb Narcos arrived and felt fresh, despite being based on known true events.
All right, I'm going to have to watch that then.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Peep Show. At time of recording, we're only halfway through Peep Show, but I think 2 have been good and one has been bad. But it's the end of an era, big time. You know, maybe the most consistent comedy show of the last 10 years. Maybe ever to do 9 seasons.
Yeah.
But it's the longest running sitcom Channel 4's ever done, and one of the longest running in British history. And it's just kept that standard up. Whereas so many comedy shows, you think of that it drops at some point.
Yeah.
So I'll be sad to see that go. Also, very sad to see Jon Stewart go.
Yeah.
One of my favourite things was if I could ever bloody find his show, because it kept jumping around the schedules and the channels in the UK. But what he did for American TV was really important, and other people have come and kind of carrying the torch, but I just miss him. I really like his style of humour, and then the fact that he never sucks up to anyone. He's not frightened of anyone. And I wish we had shows like that over here. You know, Charlie Brooker's done it a bit, and Have I Got News For You does it a bit. But that political satire is, I think, sorely lacking from UK TV.
Yeah, it's really strange because I remember when we were growing up, there's quite a lot of good stuff. Sort of, it seemed like but now everything that we do that's live and stuff is all panel comedy shows, but they seem really weak and sort of quite tame. Yeah,
or Russell Howard or something. It's not good enough. Yeah. And we invented that kind of humour in the 60s with That Was the Week That Was. Yeah. So, I was very sad to see him go.
Yeah. One show, actually, is one of my highlights of 2015, which you've just started watching, Broad City.
Yes.
It's so good. Again, another really, really good comedy show.
Yeah. Okay. Which no one's talking about over here. Again, because I think it's been kind of snuck out on a late at night on a channel that not everyone's got.
Yeah, because it's on Comedy Central, isn't it?
So you wouldn't know to find a show you've never heard of, starring no one famous at 11:30 on Comedy Central. You're just not going to find it.
No, definitely not. And when I first started, it was being talked about. I saw it being talked about in the same kind of conversations as Amy Schumer. Yeah, I guess because two women running it, and I thought it was going to be a sketch show. Mm-hmm. So I kind of went in thinking I'm not really a massive fan of sketch shows, but everyone was talking about it, and I kept seeing lots of the scenes going viral, so I thought, I'll check this out. Started watching. It's not a sketch show, it's a proper series with a storyline running through each episode, and it's so good. The 2 characters are just brilliant. They come up with really they have really strange storylines now and again. One episode, which is one of my favorite, is she really fancies the guy next door and is meant to be waiting in for a package for him, and she doesn't get it, and then she has to go across. There's a lot of New York-based humor as well. So I think if you've been to New York or if you live in New York, there's a lot of sort of jokes that you're going to get. Definitely, that a lot of people are. There's a lot of subway stuff and things like that. But the 2 of them are just, I don't know. I find them both brilliant to watch. Yeah, and they're both really good in their own ways. And just when you think one of them is it seems to be one of them is a little bit straighter than the other, and the other one's funny. The other one will go off and do something absolutely bonkers. Yeah. But a really good sort of entry episode, I think, is season 2, episode 1, because it's just a really good self-contained thing where each of them gets something really, really good to do, and they get a really good sort of couple of scenes together as well, and it's just brilliant.
How far in is it?
It's 2 seasons gone.
Okay.
Yeah. But I feel like it's something you can dip in and out of as well. I've watched 2 episodes. I don't know from where they're at. But
really?
I don't. I haven't felt lost.
I don't think it does.
I picked it up quite quickly.
Yeah. Do you feel like you get the characters immediately?
Oh
like,
yeah,
have
definitely.
to be introduced.
Yeah. No, I thought it was really good. Definitely up my street. And I'm glad you said Amy Schumer. I think she's been really funny. I think her show, More Hits Than Misses. Her stand-up is really, really good.
Stand-up's brilliant, yeah. But Trainwreck is one of the worst films I've watched.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. Yeah. But equally, there was one other thing I wanted to mention because I don't think anyone watched it. It was called No Offence. And you said Broad City, we talked about Amy Schumer. Yeah. No Offence was a British police comedy drama by Paul Abbott, who's probably my favourite British writer. He wrote Shameless and he wrote State of Play. And it's really dark and really funny.
Yeah.
And pretty much the 3 lead characters are all women, and they're all really strong, believable, interesting women, and it just shows that this can be done.
Yeah.
If I wish more people would do it. But yeah, that was one of those shows that I couldn't wait to watch the next episode because he's very good at just putting quite shocking things in his programme. In Shameless, it was full of really shocking things that when you stood back, I can't believe that's on telly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. So if anyone catches up with that, I'm sure it's on 4 on demand.
Yeah, I've seen the first episode, and it's hard because the serious stuff with the funny stuff. Like the first episode has this entrance, this really horrible sort of possible serial killer. And then there's a scene where they're all in the toilet, and then their boss comes in and is like singing a Motown song while she's wiping her vagina.
Yeah,
and it's just and there's this really odd scene.
It's a weird juxtaposition.
It's a really strange thing.
I think that's why I like his writing. Yeah. That's why I used to love Shameless, those first 2 series that he wrote, because they would have an episode about paedophilia that was really, really funny, and it's like, well, I can't believe you're doing this, but he does it in such a way that it's bizarre, but it works, and it makes it totally original.
Yeah, it also doesn't feel cheap either.
No,
there's a lot of really gross jokes in the first episode alone.
Yeah,
and in the first 20 minutes of the first episode alone as well, there's a lot of really disgusting jokes. And then you have this really serious story as well. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know, they kind of mix together, and it almost makes it feel a little bit more real.
Yeah.
In the same sense of when something funny happens in The Wire, say, it makes, because I've been rewatching that recently, and there's an episode really early on where someone is killed in a really, really violent and disgusting way to send a message to the other sort of gangs. And you have this sort of joke. They're joking about overtime around this thing and how they're being screwed over for overtime.
Yeah.
And it's it makes it feel a little bit more real. I think maybe with No Offence is a little bit sillier than that. Because it's actually properly played for laughs. But
I don't know how you guys have time to rewatch shows when there's all this good stuff out there to watch new.
Yeah.
I'm even feeling guilty rewatching Breaking Bad because there's other stuff I could be watching.
But the way that I lie to myself and the way that I get round doing it is if I'm watching it with somebody else. So my girlfriend never watched The Wire.
I guess that's what I'm doing with my dad.
That's the way I got around with watching that. But you do I'm rewatching Friday Night Lights by myself, but I do feel really bad that I'm
wasting time.
Because I feel sometimes when I get home from work, I just think you kind of just want something. It's like getting into a nice bath.
Yeah.
Just go, something that I can have on the background. I know is going to cheer me up, and I know is going to go just put me to sleep. Whereas if it's something I haven't seen before, it's like, right now you've got to properly concentrate on this.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any more that you want to mention?
I think that's it. That's me. Yeah. Show Me a Hero is really good.
Yeah, we both like Show Me a Hero. Yeah. Not enough that it's in any of my top 10s or anything, but if you like something like The Wire, obviously it was very, it's got the same people behind it as The Wire. Springsteen soundtrack, Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Being awesome.
Brilliant cast,
good show. Good, solid show.
Who's really good in Show Me a Hero is Joe Bernthal, the guy who's going to play the Punisher from Walking Dead. He's amazing in Show Me a Hero. But yeah, you're right. Isn't that kind of in the same kind of way that the show that they did after The Wire, that was set in New Orleans, Treme. Yeah, it's it's good, but it's just
it's a bit it's a bit hard work.
Yeah.
But it's good quality telly.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No. We can go on to things that we didn't like. I think that might be a good way to move.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What have we got that you didn't like?
The Walking Dead for me this season, and any episode that was in 2015, I think, really, for Walking Dead, because I thought the start of season 5 was really strong, and it's a show that's constantly up and down for me. They'll have 4 terrible episodes and I think, why am I watching this? And then they'll have something really great and then it pulls you back in.
Yeah.
And the start of season 5 was great and then the second half was terrible, and I thought this season so far has been completely terrible. I know I was talking with Alex about it the other day and he completely disagreed with me.
Yeah.
I question myself, why am I watching this? But there's something that keeps me watching.
I've never thought The Walking Dead is any good.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm up and down all the time with it.
Yeah.
I've just found it too hard to keep up with.
Okay.
I keep losing track, or it'll start and I'm not even realise the series has started, and then I can't watch it, and so I just kind of for me, I've not liked it enough that I've really sought it out.
Yeah.
Equally, like the 2 big shows on the site, Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, we haven't really talked about either of them. What about Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I mean, I really love Game of Thrones, but I felt like this season had 2 or 3 really, really good episodes, but then there was quite a bit of treading water in between, I felt like.
I kind of, that's the thing with Game of Thrones, it's never at the top of my lists on any of my TV things. It's just something that I just kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
But it felt like this year, there was a lot less people talking about Game of Thrones than there was other years. I don't know why. Maybe people are just starting to get a little tiny bit fatigued with it. But it really felt like last year was like the huge one, and it was the year after the big series, the big sort of crazy stuff happening, and it just didn't feel like people were into it that much. And I really liked it. I thought it was one of my favorite series, but really understated series for like this one.
Well, the thing is, at the end of this season now, they've overtaken the books on a lot of things, and a lot of things have changed now from previous seasons where they were following it beat for beat almost. So I think that's going to cause some people to not like it.
Yeah, it's strange though. Those are the 2 top things on their website, and we just not that asked.
Well, I get battered every time I say I don't really like Game of Thrones, but I will try it again one day. But like, it's just I've given up twice.
Yeah,
it's just not for me.
Yeah. That's the thing, like some shows just not. It must be
sure, and
it's super frustrating sometimes when you just go, it's just not for me.
Yeah. Be boring if we all like the same stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that's about it, really.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about This Is England, but I didn't watch it, so that's no good, is it? Again, my blooming internet's caused me all kinds of problems, but that might have been up there for me.
Yeah, Kruger said it was a really good end to it all.
Yeah.
I can't watch it just because I can't handle how harsh it is.
Yeah, no, so you go into it with real fear and trepidation.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it's been a good year without maybe being a vintage year.
Definitely not. I mean, I just think we're just really lucky to have Fargo on telly. Just the idea that someone can go away and make that.
Yeah.
And it be so good. And have the opportunity to make something like that. It's just brilliant, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was some of our best and worst TV. But what were some of yours? Let us know. IGN_UK feedback at IGN.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Merry Christmas. I don't know when this is going out. We're wearing Christmas jumpers.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it traditional.
Thank you.